Hey guys, welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to be looking at the presidency of Lyndon B Johnson and to see if he was a good president. As always, I'm going to be looking at this, seeing negatives and the positive parts of the president, just because there's a lot to consider. A lot of times historians will, or people in the history community will portray a president based off of their own political beliefs, but I'm going to try and look at this as more of just how did the president help the country. So first of all, some background. He was the vice president to John F. Kennedy, but then Kennedy was assassinated, so he was forced to become president. He then ran for re-election in 1964, and he won in a landslide. So we'll look at his major accomplishments. So the first major accomplishment was the Civil Rights Act of 1964. This was a really important act, probably the biggest, the biggest piece of legislation since the Civil War that really moved the rights for people of color, particularly African Americans, because it prohibited discrimination and it provided integration for school so that everyone could be together instead of segregated, because that was what most of American history has been, was segregation. Another part of his administration was Great Society. Great Society was huge, absolutely huge, because this was really his goal was to really eliminate inequality. So this was kind of like almost like a New Deal program part 2, I would say. And he had started the war on poverty. He wanted to try and make sure that poverty wasn't contained. He wanted to get rid of it. Fortunately, he did not succeed, but he did try. Also, Medicare and Medicaid, which we have here in the United States to this day, it's still a debated topic, but overall it is seen as a big positive. Head Start education reform. So this really, supporters of this will say that this really helped him really kind of help the country and help fight inequalities. But of course, there are also some negative parts of it. Now, first of all, probably the thing that really dragged his presidency down was the Vietnam War, because even though John F. Kennedy was starting to escalate the war, it was really Johnson who really spearheaded this. And that's with the Gulf Tonkin incident in 1964, where a ship had said that or destroyers had said they were fired upon by North Vietnamese. And Johnson used this to send more troops with the Gulf of Tonkin resolution, which allowed him to send troops and retaliate against the North Vietnamese. And this would really be the legal basis for Johnson to pursue Vietnam. And unfortunately, this caused lots and lots of distrust in his administration, mainly because, the way he handled this was in order to get money to send troops. Instead of, trying to handle it legislatively, he just decided to get Congress to use his mandate to, from the 1964 election, to basically just send troops without any debate. And that was really a big problem, because that really, a lot of people really did not like that he was sending troops to Iran, and millions were sent, or not millions, but thousands of troops. As you can see, he sent lots of troops to the Vietnam, and this was really led to a lot of dead American soldiers, and that was partly why he would not get a second term. Also, Great Society and the Vietnam War, both of those really had an economic strain on the country, because, they were spending so much money. And a lot of critics said that Great Society really was just a bunch of programs that tried to throw money at policies or problems that didn't actually produce any results. And also, this was really a time of lots of riots and turmoil, a lot of riots based off of race, because a lot of African American citizens were really angry that white police officers felt that they were mistreating and just not upholding the Civil Rights Act. So yeah, overall, what eventually would happen to Johnson is that he would try to actually run for re-election in 1968, but his decision, I'm trying to find it, his decision to go, I don't know why I can find me, sorry. He tried to seek re-election, but the problem was that there were so many opponents that tried to primary him because of he was pro-war, and all these other candidates were anti-Vietnam, and because of that, after a poor showing in the New Hampshire primary, he only won it narrowly. He decided that he wouldn't run for re-election. And unfortunately for him, his vice president, Hubert Humphrey, would take over for the party, and then Hubert Humphrey would lose to Richard Nixon. So, overall, I would say Lyndon B Johnson, definitely not a bad president, had a lot of good acts like the Civil Rights Act, and I think that some of those programs that he did implement, the Great Society, definitely did help a lot of low-income families. It Course, though, there's also some critiques to that just rose inflation, and that raised inflation, and that it really just really caused the U.S. to spend a lot of money on issues. And also, the Vietnam War, really probably the thing that really ruined his presidency, was just that the Vietnam War was just not a positive aspect for him, because he lied about it a lot, and he was just not a good president, or not good at handling the situation. So I think that's why he decided not to run for election. So that's the video. Share your thoughts in the comments. Bye.